They were TV's perfect family. But when the cameras stopped rolling, everything fell apart. One star was caught naked in Vegas with adult film stars. Another was accused of sexual harassment by 4 women. The landlord couple both died within years of each other. She kept her cancer secret while filming. The uncle became Batman's most famous villain. Then quietly died teaching college students. What started as America's favorite sitcom family ended in scandal, sickness, and silence. Emmanuel Lewis. Emmanuel Lewis was once one of the most famous child stars in America. From 1983 to 1987, he played Webster, a role that made him a household name. He was small, charming, and instantly recognizable. People adored him, but after the cameras stopped rolling, his life took a strange and painful turn. Fame had given him everything, but it didn't last forever. In 2010, the world got a shocking update. His Georgia home was sold at auction for just $56,000. The reason? He hadn't paid $44,000, $81.41 in taxes, money owed to the state, county, and school board between 2007 and 2010. People couldn't believe it. A man who had earned millions as a child, Starr lost his home over unpaid taxes that seemed small compared to what he once made. Even more heartbreaking, his mother Margaret was also listed in the foreclosure documents, showing that the financial strain hit the whole family. The $56,000 sale wasn't just a number. It was a symbol of how far he had fallen. But money wasn't the only strange part of Emmanuel's story. There was also his body. At just 3 feet 6 inches tall, Emmanuel never grew past the size of a young child. What made it more baffling was that doctors couldn't explain it. He had no hormone issues, no genetic condition, no diagnosis at all. He stopped growing at around age 12. From that point on, his height barely changed, just 6 inches over decades. His mother took him to doctor after doctor, but they all said the same thing. We don't know why this is happening. His size helped him get the role of Webster, but it also created a problem. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him once he aged out of childhood roles. He didn't look like a man, but he wasn't a kid anymore either. That confusion made it hard to find work. In 2007, Emmanuel quietly stepped away from acting. He had just finished a small role in the comedy Kickin' It Old School, and then he disappeared. He turned down offers to join reality shows, including Dancing with the Stars. That would have been easy money. Most former child stars jump at the chance, but Emmanuel didn't want it. He didn't want the spotlight anymore. He moved to a quiet property far outside Metro Atlanta, surrounded by horses and silence. He said paparazzi had followed him too much in cities like New York and L.A. He couldn't live like that. He wanted peace. Alex Karras. After Webster ended in 1989, Alex Karras' life took a sharp and painful turn. He had been the lovable father figure on TV, but behind the scenes, his health began to unravel. The man once admired for both his strength on the football field and charm on screen, and started to suffer from memory loss and confusion. By the late 1990s, it was clear something was deeply wrong. Doctors linked his condition to repeated head trauma from his NFL career, which had lasted 12 brutal seasons between 1958 and 1970. Dementia set in. He struggled to remember basic things. Recipes he once loved to cook vanished from his memory. Even driving, something he enjoyed for decades, was no longer possible. His wife, Susan Clark, watched as the man she knew slowly faded, but dementia wasn't the only fight. Karras was also battling heart disease and stomach cancer, which he had quietly lived with for 2 years. Then, just 2 days before his death on October 10, 2012, came another devastating blow: kidney failure. It was his final diagnosis. On October 8th, his friend Tom McInerney publicly shared the news. Karras spent his last days at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica before going into hospice care at home in Los Angeles, where he passed away surrounded by family. As his health declined, Karras joined a lawsuit in April 2012 with over 3,500 former NFL players. They accused the league of failing to protect them from head injuries. Karras became a symbol of the damage caused by the game that had made him famous. Just months before his death, he was still fighting, not just for himself, but for countless others suffering in silence. After Webster, Karras's career had faded. His final role came in 1998, 9 years after the show ended. He played a father on The Tom Show, a minor part compared to his earlier success. During the height of Webster, he had hosted Saturday Night Live in 1985 and appeared in ads for brands like Lazy Boy and Transformers. But that fame didn't last. Hollywood moved on. What made the fade so tragic was Karras's earlier versatility. He had gone from NFL lineman to sportscaster to actor in films like Blazing Saddles to a beloved sitcom star. Most athletes never make such a leap. Yet when Webster ended in 1989, it felt like his career ended with it. And then there was the old scandal. In 1963, long before Hollywood, Karras was suspended from the NFL for gambling. He and Paul Hornung had both bet on games. Karras even owned part of a Detroit bar, tied to gambling and organized crime. At first, he refused to sell his stake and threatened to retire. When he finally admitted to placing bets, he was suspended for a full season. The scandal never truly left him. Even when he returned, his response to a coin toss, "I'm sorry, sir, I'm not permitted to gamble," was a dark joke that reminded everyone of his past. It stuck with him. The story was often brought up long after he had remade himself as a family-friendly TV star. His conflicts with authority ran deep. He clashed with coaches in college, then again in the NFL. That rebellious streak shaped both his career and reputation. It gave him charisma. It also caused trouble that followed him for years. Susan Clark. As for Susan Clark, her life after Webster was completely different. While others chased roles or faded in silence, Clark made a bold choice. She stepped away on her own terms. No scandal, no desperation, just quiet, deliberate retreat. Clark had already won an Emmy for playing Babe Didrikson Zacharias in 1975. After Webster, instead of chasing more fame, she turned to theater. She found joy in small, powerful stage performances across Southern California. In 1990, she starred in Meetins, On the Porch, with Patty Doom. Then came Afterplay in 1998 by Coastal Women, in 2003, and The Importance of Being Earnest in 2004. She played Lady Bracknell, commanding the stage with elegance and control. She joined the Rubicon Theater Company in Los Angeles, performing in classic plays like The Glass Menagerie and A Delicate Balance. It was a return to her roots. She had trained in London, performing 50 plays by age 21. After decades in television, she returned to where it all began, live theater. She still appeared on television, but only occasionally. She chose meaningful roles, like in Snowbound, The Gym, and Jennifer Stolp's Story in 1994, or Emily of New Moon in 1998. That last one, where she played a stern aunt raising an orphaned girl, turned out to be her final big TV role. Clark's greatest heartbreak came in 2012 when Alex Karras died. They had been married for 32 years. Together, they ran their own production company, George and Bay Productions, and made TV films like Jimmy B and Andre, and Word of Honor. Their partnership was personal and professional. His death ended not just a marriage, but a creative journey they had shared for decades. What made Clark's story so unusual was her calm rejection of Hollywood's treadmill. She was reportedly worth $6 million. She could have stayed in the spotlight, but she didn't. She didn't need to. She left when she wanted to, something few actors ever manage. Henry Pulitz II. After Webster ended in 1989, Henry Pollitt's The Cell looked like he was on the edge of even more success. He had already made a name for himself playing the charming Jerry Silver, Webster's uncle. Audiences loved him. Producers respected him. But what came next wasn't what anyone expected. Pollitt didn't stay in front of the camera much longer. By 1992, just 3 years after the show ended, he made a surprising move into voice acting. That same year, he landed the role that would define the rest of his career, Dr. Jonathan Crane, better known as the Scarecrow, in Batman, the animated series. What made it incredible wasn't just the role itself, it was how he played it. He completely changed his voice, using a high-pitched British accent that didn't sound anything like his real voice. That version of the Scarecrow stuck with a whole generation. He voiced the character in 6 episodes between 1992 and 1994, including Nothing to Fear, Fear of Victory, and Dreams in Darkness. What many fans didn't know was that Pollitt had a serious military background. He served as military police at Fort Riley in Kansas and was a Vietnam veteran. That discipline carried into his voice acting. He mastered accents, knew ballroom dancing, and had a deep baritone singing voice. These unique skills helped him get work in shows like The Smurfs, Yo Yogi, and Mighty Max. From the 1990s into the 2000s, Pollitt kept working quietly, mostly behind the scenes. But behind all that work, he was fighting a silent battle. Pollitt had cancer. He kept it private. Even while sick, he spent his final years teaching acting at Emerson College in Los Angeles. His students said he brought incredible energy into every room. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a mentor. In 2004, he had one last role in a TV film called Combustion. Then, on August 11, 2013, he died from cancer at the age of 68 in Sherman Oaks, California. He was buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of Arizona, a final honor for a man who had served both his country and the entertainment world for decades. From his early days as the Sheriff of Nottingham in 1975 to voicing a legendary Batman villain, Henry Pollitt II's journey ended with quiet dignity. Catherine Damon and Eugene Roche. Catherine Damon and Eugene Roche played a lovable landlord couple on Webster. But after the show, both faced heartbreaking ends. Catherine's story was especially painful. In 1986, while still filming the final episodes, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She didn't tell the public. She kept acting. Her final film role was in She's Having a Baby, where she played Elizabeth McGovern's mother. The film about pregnancy and new life was released in 1988 after Catherine had already passed. That contrast was hard to ignore. She had fought through pain to keep performing. Even in her last year, she appeared on Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, and Mike Hammer. Born in 1930, Catherine had started her journey in New York at just 16, chasing a ballet dream. She struggled with self-esteem and carried the emotional weight of her parents' divorce. She had been married once to actor Richard Price Towers, but that didn't last. Before TV fame, she spent over 20 years on Broadway. She appeared in Flora the Red Menace, Prisoner of Second Avenue, and even worked on Tennessee Williams plays. She died on May 4, 1987, at the age of 56. A few years later, her soap co-star Richard Mulligan honored her at the 1989 Emmys, calling her Toots and thanking her for their time together. Eugene Roche's story was different, but just as emotional. He didn't battle a long illness. His end came quickly. Born in Boston, he got into acting young, starting in radio. He served in the Army, went to Emerson College, and then began a long career that lasted over 40 years. To most people, his face was familiar, even if they didn't know his name. He was the squeaky clean man in Ajax commercials. He played serious roles, too, like Edgar Darby in Slaughterhouse-Five, a prisoner of war executed for taking a figurine from Dresden. He could be funny, charming, or tragic, and always believable. Even after Webster ended, Roche kept acting. He appeared on Perfect Strangers and starred in Take 5, where he earned praise for playing a hard-edged businessman. Critics loved him. He returned to live theater in the late 90s, performing in Merton at the movies and A Certain Labor Day at age 70. He never slowed down, but on July 28, 2004, Roche suffered 2 heart attacks and passed away in Encino. He was 75. His death shocked those around him. He had still been working, still taking on new roles. He left behind his wife, Antoni, 9 children, 9 grandchildren, a brother, and a sister. His family asked that, instead of flowers, people donate to the Actors Fund, a quiet reminder that even successful actors sometimes struggle behind the curtain. Ben Vereen. Ben Vereen's life after Webster was a mix of big success and deep pain. He stayed in the spotlight, still dancing and performing, still chasing the applause, but behind the stage lights, something darker was growing. The same man who lit up Broadway and Pippin and Jesus Christ Superstar was fighting a quiet war inside his mind. After Webster ended, he began to sink into a depression so heavy it felt like the air had been sucked out of his life. At first, he didn't even want to admit it. How could a man known for his energy and charisma admit he couldn't get out of bed some days? How could a Tony Award winner confess that he'd lost the will to dance? He kept performing, kept smiling, but behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. The sadness came in waves. He couldn't concentrate. He was tired all the time. His personal life suffered. His work became harder, and still he told no one. Eventually, he sought help. Therapy, medication, anything to feel normal again. He even used dance as part of his healing. It wasn't easy. Every small improvement came with setbacks. But for a man whose whole life had been movement, turning dance into therapy became a powerful way to survive. Then came a shock that no therapy could prepare him for. In 2015, years after the Depression began, a storm hit that changed everything. Multiple women came forward and accused Ben Vereen of sexual harassment and abuse. It happened during a production of Hair that he directed in Florida. One of the women, Caitlin Terpstra, hosted about it on Facebook, and what followed was a flood of disturbing details. 4 women spoke to the press. They described being pressured, manipulated, and humiliated. They said Vereen used his fame to control them. He told them that nudity wasn't sexual, and that only those who understood that were mature enough for the show. Then he reportedly invited them to strip and join him in a hot tub. It didn't stop there. One woman, identified as Kim, said he pressured her into performing oral sex. She felt trapped and scared. She later realized it was a power game. Others said he made unwanted advances during rehearsals and used private coaching as a cover to cross boundaries. Even worse, he dangled dreams in front of them, talked about tours and big opportunities. He made it sound like obeying him would lead to fame. Venice Theatre conducted an investigation and spoke to 26 out of 32 cast members. The problem, it turned out, wasn't small or isolated. It was everywhere. As Ben Vereen's name filled headlines again, it wasn't because of a Broadway comeback. It was because the curtain had finally lifted on a very dark truth. Jack Crushen, who played Grandpa Papadopoulos, lived a different kind of life after the show. His fame never reached the heights of Broadway stardom, but he had been in over 75 films. He had worked with legends like Billy Wilder, John Wayne, and Elvis Presley. Still, when Webster ended in 1987, Crushen kept working, even as his health declined. He didn't stop. In fact, in 1997, at the age of 75, he appeared in his final film, Till There Was You. He didn't complain. When a young church drama director asked him to act in a Sunday skit, he simply said, "You're the director." No ego, no reminders of his Oscar nomination for The Apartment. Just respect. and kindness. Then something unexpected happened. Jack Crushon became a spiritual guide. He joined a small church in California with his wife Mary, and they began offering support to others. They didn't preach, they just listened. One story tells of a young man who came in clearly hurting. Jack noticed. Quietly, gently, he reached out. No speeches, just compassion. He let his actions speak louder than any role he'd ever played. But when he died on April 2, 2002, almost no one noticed. He was 80 years old, vacationing in Arizona. The news wasn't even reported until the end of May. Over a month passed, no headlines, no tributes. Hollywood had already forgotten him. It was a painful reminder. In the world of fame, some stars burn bright, crash hard, and make the news for all the wrong reasons. Others give their lives to the craft, quietly, humbly, and are left behind. One was torn apart by scandal. The other vanished without a sound. Chad Allen. Chad Allen was once the clean-cut kid on Webster, but his real-life story took a turn no one expected. Born on June 5, 1974, in Cerritos, California, he moved from child star to teen idol with roles on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. But in 1996, at the height of his fame, everything changed. Tabloid photographers outed him after catching him kissing another man. In the Hollywood of the 90s, that could have been the end of his career. But Chad didn't disappear. Instead, he made a choice few others dared to make at the time. He stood up and spoke out. Rather than hiding, he became one of the most visible LGBTQ+ voices in the industry. He played groundbreaking roles like gay detective Donald Strady and starred in films like Save Me, pushing for more honest representation in film and television. He also took the stage in plays like The Little Dog Laughed, making sure LGBTQ+ characters had a real voice. Then, in 2015, he shocked everyone again, this time by quitting acting altogether. At just 40 years old, he walked away from the spotlight after 34 years. He'd been studying quietly the whole time, first at UCLA, then Antioch University. The process was long, difficult, and overwhelming. He admitted the final licensing exam in 2022, consumed his life for 6 months straight, but he passed. And now, that same teen heartthrob is a licensed psychologist. Even away from acting, he kept giving back. He once raised over $13,000 by running a marathon in Australia for HIV/AIDS research. At 48, he spends his time helping young people navigate emotional challenges, not with scripts or cameras, but real advice and hard-earned experience. His work might not be on screen anymore, but it's arguably more powerful than ever. Gabe Witcher. Gabe Witcher's story couldn't be more different, but it's just as impressive. Born on June 11, 1978, he got his first taste of fame, not through acting, but music. At 6 years old, bluegrass legend Bill Monroe pulled him on stage at the Strawberry Music Festival. That moment sparked a 25-year musical journey with his father as the Witcher Brothers, touring the Southwest. By age 15, Gabe had already contributed original music to film. His track, Hard to Find, played at the end of The Skateboard Kid. Not long after, he joined the Laurel Canyon Ramblers, stepping in for the legendary Byron Berlin as their fiddler. Berlin was a giant in the bluegrass world, and for a teenager to take his spot was almost unthinkable. But Gabe didn't just fill shoes, he built his own path. In 2008, he co-founded Punch Brothers, an acoustic band that tore up genre lines and earned a Grammy in 2019 for Best Folk Album. They were so respected, Oberlin Conservatory even made them affiliate scholars. Gabe wasn't just the fiddler. He played violin, mandolin, guitar, drums, bass, and sang. He worked with Paul Simon, Elton John, Yo-Yo Ma, and even the Coen brothers. His fingerprints are all over Hollywood, from The Hunger Games and True Detective to Toy Story, Sons of Anarchy and Babel. He even composed music for the hit video game Red Dead Redemption 2. In 2023, after 18 years, he left Punch Brothers. His final show was at Telluride, the very festival where the band was born. Now he lives in Los Angeles with his wife, actress Mary Faber, and their 2 sons. He's still composing, still producing, and still creating. He started as a child actor on Webster, but his legacy will be written in music. Heather O'Rourke. Heather O'Rourke's story is the shortest, but it might be the most haunting. Born on December 27, 1975, she was discovered by Steven Spielberg at just 5 years old, sitting in an MGM cafeteria. She failed her first audition by laughing at a stuffed animal, but Spielberg gave her another shot. He handed her a scary storybook and asked her to scream. She screamed until she cried and got the role. That role was Carol Ann in Poltergeist. Her whispered, "Their hair became one of horror's most famous lines." She starred in all 3 Poltergeist films and made appearances on Happy Days, Webster, and the new Leave It to Beaver. She was only on Webster for a short time, but even there she stood out, warm, charming, and professional beyond her years. In January 1987, Heather started feeling unwell. Her legs and feet were swollen. Doctors first said it was the flu, then Crohn's disease. During filming for Poltergeist 3, she was on medication that made her cheeks puff up, but no one suspected anything worse. On February 1, 1988, she collapsed. She went into cardiac arrest and died from septic shock. The real cause was a congenital bowel defect no one had diagnosed. She was 12. Her death shook Hollywood. The ending of Poltergeist 3 had to be reshot, using a body double because Heather was gone. Her story became part of the infamous Poltergeist curse, as fans tried to make sense of how someone so bright could vanish so quickly. Her parents later sued the hospital for misdiagnosis and settled out of court. She left behind unforgettable roles, a legend that refuses to fade, and a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile childhood stardom can be.